Ladies and gentlemen, members and friends, it's time for Summer Sippers. I'm just going to get rid of this for a second. Here I am. I'm going to bring us all up in a second. It's a triple treat tonight. There's actually three of us here to taste through the Summer Sippers. Welcome to the stream. Let's bring them all in. Of course, you know, Andrew Durbridge, here he is. And, of course,
hello,
Alex Morse. We're all here. Ooh, is someone flushing a toilet?
I thought that was the round of applause.
There's some serious background noise coming from somewhere, but we'll get around to that. I can hear like a TV or something. Is that you, Morsey? We'll get there.
Might be. I'll have a look.
Okay. So I think it was. Yeah, he's muted himself, and that sounds come right down. All good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. There's quite a few people who can't join us in live, but we're going to go live now anyway because it's Summer Sippers. It's Tuesday, the 24th of January. And, you know, we're going live at 7. We always welcome the comments coming in. Dov Burns is already in the stream. Of course, here he is. Evening, Morsey and Andrew Durbridge, of course. Good to see you, Dov. Here he said evening to me. Whiskey's my jam. Here we go. The classic Whiskey's my jam whiskey glass. We're all sorted. We've got Summer Sippers to go. Before I get really cracking into this, let's just bring this up for a second for us all to see. This is our Mavericks year. This is 40 years of the SMWS worldwide, celebrating this year. It's a very exciting year ahead for us. This is officially welcome to everyone to the first virtual of the year. And of course, they're just going to ramp up from here, really. The Summer Sippers is an opportunity for us to taste through some really summery casks that Andrew and the team, we've all picked out just for the sake of tasting good whiskey, getting together on a warm evening, I should say, and tasting a few things. But this is our Mavericks year. It's our chance for us to say, hey, look, we've been trailblazing for 40 years now and really changing the whiskey game and changing the whiskey appreciation landscape. Good evening from Cairns, you dodgy blokes. Good evening to you as well, Scarebus Driver. I'll take that comment. Dodgy blokes, that works. Okay, good. So it's our Mavericks year this year. Looking forward to it. And we've got so much in the pipeline for you this year. It's so exciting. Moving right along I'll just show you this photo real quick. This is Pip drinking whiskey, a sherried whiskey, out of the original lemonade bottle that he siphoned off that quarter cask of 1.1 from where the society all began. So it was a bit of a flashback for him as we sort of got together. That is not 1.1 in that bottle, but it is a recent sherried release from the society. And there's a great video we've just put up on our YouTube channel of Pip having a chat with Richard Goslin and the team from the Vaults, talking about 40 years and what it means to him. But that leads us into our first whiskey. So I'll bring up the team. Here we go. Why don't we pour our first one out and see how we go here. So,
hey Matt, if I just position myself just right, my face is the logo. How cool's that?
Wait, I'll do you one better. Here you go. Ready? Bonk.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Or I could just do this if you like. There you go. And I can get it if you want. I don't mind either way.
The black monogram matches your black shirt, so
yeah. That is true. That is true. We're starting with Smiling from Within from our tasting packs tonight. 13.85. It's available now. This is a recent release, and the whole idea behind this particular one and putting it in the lineup was that it's a summery kind of whiskey. It was kind of like tropical fruits, a real fruit basket, if you like. For each of these whiskeys tonight, as we go along and have a chat about each one, have a chat about the distillery and the cask and whatnot, I've actually got an image ready to show of sort of if you were to summarize this whiskey in one image sort of vibe. So I started with a photo of the outside, which, can't tell you what distillery it is. A photo from the inside, which are some of the most incredibly weird stills in Scotland, which I'll get Andrew to talk about. And of course, our flavor positioning for this one. It was for me anyway. It was like a tropical basket of fruits. It had that sort of mango, papaya, but so much going on from the spirit of this distillery when it's not 40% and shrouded in E150.
I think was it a couple of years ago we did the live stream of this distillery, and I made the comment that there was the town actually had a caramel factory nearby, and
I think you did actually. I remember it's like 2 or 3 people made that remark to me in like the week following in person, saying about the caramel factory remark. I was like, yeah, that was good. That was good.
It's a shame because their official bottlings are heavy in that department. And it really detracts from beautiful spirit. And I think when you find the independent bottlings from this distillery, and the society ones have been sensational over the years, you really see what the fuss is about. And it's obviously a distillery that got premiumized. The story was it Robbo? I've forgotten his first name now. John Roberts. David Robertson from Macallan left Macallan, and he turned it into a luxury brand and went to Dalmore. Which is, whoops, I've just said that distillery.
No, there it is. It's the first one of the night.
I've done it. That's the first time in about 10 live streams. I'm just with myself.
Yeah, that's true.
And as I say, this got premiumized, Shane, because when you get it in all, it's just wonderful.
It's the curse of IBs being very different from an original bottling product too. Like, it's generally a great thing because it gives you that product you otherwise wouldn't find, but if your first exposure to it is the OB, which it is for most people, you get predisposed to think it's going to be like that for all IBs, and you might skip them if it's not to your liking for the OB. But shows you should always try the IBs.
By the way, big shout out to Murray Hassan, who's tuned in live. He's tuned in via our LinkedIn stream of this because, Murray, I know you're not a Facebook user. I don't think I can't remember if you're on Twitter. I think you are, but we predominantly go out on the Facebook group for this. I know you're not on Facebook, so I'm glad you're watching it somewhere. And I'm now glad that we're streaming to LinkedIn as well, which we only recently added into the stream.
I was about to say, it's not often you see the LinkedIn tag there on the logo. And g'day to Jim as well. Jim's tuned in.
Hey, Jim, good to see you. So how are we going with that 1385? It's a fascinating spirit. And I touched on it.
I'm enjoying the nose. Oh, the nose is sensational. I could spend all night just on that.
I agree. But palate's not bad. I have tried it, but I think I'd refer back to the nose. There's a lot more happening on the nose for me than on the palate.
Interesting. I was really thrilled to see this distillery pop up in the lineup, because this is the one distillery in Scotland I've actually worked at. I spent a day working at this distillery. I spent the morning doing the brewing. In fact, I'm just going to change my background here. There you go. Took that photo the day I was there. I'll get my head out of the way. You can see the logo down the back of the room there. So I spent a day in this room here behind me doing the brewing and the fermentation, and then spent the afternoon down in the still house. And Matt, you kind of touched on it a bit earlier in your introduction. It is a bizarre, wacko system that's set up there. The stills are all over the place, not necessarily matched. They're all different shapes. You can see the one on the left-hand side there has a cooling jacket. You can see that they're flat tops and that the line arms stick out from the side rather than over the top. The story behind that, apparently, prior to the room that they're in now, they came from another building where the roof was lower and they wouldn't fit in. So rather than take the roof off, they just chopped the top off the stills. So classic example of things just changing over time. But it's a real wacky, zany setup. And despite spending 4 hours with the stillman going through the process, I still had no clue at the end of the day. It was so confusing. Definitely not a textbook distillery.
Yeah, they are very wacky stills, and it's not uncommon to see that whole sort of, when you see distilleries in Scotland where you feel like the stills have almost outgrown the room they're in. Yeah, and it's like there's the building was built with much smaller stills in place or something, and then it's grown over time when they've added extra pairs and there's millimeter gaps between walls and stills and pipes, and it's very much what can we fit where kind of thing.
I think Strathisle's a great example of that. If you
I was literally about to say Strathisle. Yeah, that is messed up. Like even to get around that distillery requires ladder work.
Yeah,
it's great.
I think Dov made a point just a few moments ago, a bit more heat than you expect for a 13-year-old. There is a bit of heat in this, and it's not the alcohol heat. The alcohol is only 58.9. Have I got that right? Yeah. There's a bit more in the spirit, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that spirit. It's got that sort of it's almost a little bit weighty as well. It's kind of a little bit of a heavy sort of like a little bit of savory character in it, which I like.
I get quite a bit of like the oak when sometimes if it's not, you wouldn't say it's tannic, but when the tannins are so pronounced, it can have that little bit more, the spiciness sort of feels like alcohol heat.
Yeah. You get fired that quickly, Darren? Darren asks. One day and he's done. Your apprenticeship was failed.
I was trying to, that message was too cryptic for me. I was trying to understand it. Now I get it. Yeah, okay.
You only worked one day there, so what? That's it. New kid's not any good. Get rid of him. And Rob Akers asks, can he get a LinkedIn learning certificate for this live stream? Yeah, sure. Why not? You know. Has anyone added water to this yet?
I was just about to do that. Let's
same. I haven't yet
as well.
Give it a crack.
My non-scientific water jug tonight.
Oh, opens up the nose straight away.
10
of peaches, 10 of apricots and syrup.
Get like there's like buttermilk pancake note. Like
buttermilk, good call. Yeah.
The water works with that on both palate and nose. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah, palate goes up a notch with that one.
I posted on the Facebook group the other day just about the whole. I'm really enjoying these 13s we're getting through, and they're so diverse, and they're in a few different flavor profiles. We've seen this one like sweet, fruity, and mellow. We saw a recent spicy and dry, and even a recent juicy oak and vanilla. So we're seeing some really different flavor profiles of the distillate coming through of different ages as well. 9, 11, 13, 14-year-old casks coming through, which is great.
Yeah. I'd almost say that was spicy and sweet. And maybe on first blush, maybe the sort of the panel flavor profile decision was made after water, because I think now that I've cracked it, it is definitely falling more in sweet, fruity, and mellow. But yeah, on first approach, I was thinking, man, that's a bit spicier than I would have put it for the sweet profile previously.
Spicy and sweet,
perhaps. I prefer that with water, I think. Yeah, it's rarely a response from me, but I think nose and palate, I think that can take a bit of water.
I think that's one of the small shames we have in shame's the wrong word there. A small disadvantage that we no longer have our local tasting panel and our local Australian notes. That was one thing our panel used to make a point of, was saying, hey guys, we reckon this benefits from a drop of water, and we'd identify in advance and just put the tips in our turn to say, this is what the panel thought. It's a very different response to the tasting notes we get from the UK, where they just simply say, well, here's how we found it neat, and here's how we found it with water, with not necessarily a recommendation.
People are still speculating as to how you left Dalmore. AD didn't add enough caramel. They were unhappy with your E150 addition ratio. You didn't quite dump enough liters in. And Dov asks, was it were you drinking too much of the profits from Dalmore? Yes, maybe.
Well, I'll tell you what, here's the really scary thing now that I think about it. That day that I worked there was 2011, which is 12 years ago. So when the next 12-year-old comes out from this distillery, it might have my fingerprints on it. If it goes downhill, you can blame me.
Yeah, the blood, sweat, and tears Aussie edition. We're looking forward to it. Do they even make it? Did they even make a 12-year-old expression anymore? I don't know. I
don't know if they do anymore. They certainly used to.
Yeah, I remember
the next Constellation series. AD will be one of the Constellations. Sold at duty free.
50,000 pounds in a crystal decanter.
I'll tell you what. Do you remember? If you're a fan of the movie Kingsman, this distillery featured in that. The 1962 was the amazing whiskey they referenced at the start of the film.
Unlike the sequel, which was entirely a Brown Forman commercial.
Yes, not to mention a terrible movie.
Not to mention. Okay, we won't mention that.
No, please don't.
Cool. No, I won't.
How much is that now that we've added water to that and it's 5 minutes later? How much more is that tropical fruit just leaping out of the glass?
Yeah, I like I said, that sort of mango papaya notes that I got last time I tasted this. Bit of that watermelon with a bit of water added.
Watermelon, absolutely.
And there's something pastry about it, like perhaps buttermilk, or it's definitely like it's freshness, but there's definitely some sort of pastry in it. Very good. Now with the water in particular.
Absolutely. That is lovely. Just so you can all follow along at home with your tasting pack, whether you're watching now or later. You're watching Summer Sippers. It's our January virtual. You have a menu in your tasting kit, which I'm just holding up here, and you've also got your tasting mat that you can lay out your glassware on if you wish to share it. Or there's two. There's usually two in every pack, so you can share it with someone because there's enough in each dram to share around. I mean, I've just had just a smidge of mine, and you can always. It's a 30 ml sample. It's a good sharing sample. But there's unless you don't feel like sharing, you can always just have it yourself. But it's I recommend adding water and as we like to say sometimes, drink responsibly.
Sometimes.
Cool. Sometimes, Well, so shall we look at whiskey number 2 whilst we're here?
Yes, Matthew. So
yes. 105.37. Let's get physical. So I'll bring up the slide for this one. Here we go. 105.37. There's the bottle. An 11-year-old in the spicy and sweet flavor profile. First fill ex-bourbon barrel. Single cask strength SMWS goodies. 63%. Now, this whiskey actually got a feature just last week. It had its first outing last week with this lineup, which was a nice little collaboration tasting that was held with Mountain Culture Brewery out of Katoomba. And this was the second or middle in the lineup. And it was definitely one of the member favorites on the night. And I think we'll see why when we have a taste of it now. There it is. I think it's
definitely
one of
my favorite
glorious
pairing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was my favorite pairing as well. Yeah. There's the Glorious Distiller, which kind of looks like halfway between a private school and a power plant or something. It's got a very strange design to it, but I love it. It looks very it's very much that what year was it? 1959, 1960 that it was completed building, and so it's had that grand sort of ambitions of the future of Scotch whiskey built into it, and the peak of sort of Scotch whiskey. And there's our cathedral.
Oh wow! Look at my background. Amazing.
There you go. Okay, and our theme for this one, our flavor theme, is going to be physical. So we'll go with something fizzy on the screen. But Andrew, I'm going to bring up you on full screen here for a second because I want to see that background you've got. Yeah, very nice. Yeah,
so I was privileged enough to walk through this distillery in when was it? It was either 11 or 2014, and amazing place. At the time, it was owned by the Shivers Brothers Group, part of Pernod Ricard. That's changed very recently. It was changed hands. Oh, Morsey, help me out here. Was it start of last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
It's now with
so.
Elixir Distillers.
Sukinda, yes.
Sukinda, indeed, yeah. And they made announcements just over the weekend that they're planning to build a visitor centre. This distillery has always been closed to visitors up till now, so that'll be interesting as well.
I got to visit it in 2018, but yeah, it was closed at the time. But I got shown around parts of it, but it was sort of like this bit's closed at the moment, and this bit's being worked on, and I would have taken some nicer photos had I gotten into more parts of it, but also my camera had just been crushed by a car.
I think I got in 17, got some good photos with an uncrushed camera, but then by 19. Or maybe didn't tee it up properly, but it was all a bit more shut off. Like they sort of let you wander some parts of it, but not the full tour.
If you're really keen on distillery nerddom, you can see at the top of all those stills, just before you get to the condenser, there's a purifier. And I'll just leave that there for you to ponder.
I'm pondering purifiers now. Yeah, I mean, even those they're more traditional than, say, Dalmore stills, but they're still pretty weird.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, it's interesting. Glen Grant, another distillery that makes use of purifiers in the same way. In fact, they're almost identical when you see the shape of them.
It's a very
anyone else getting something just something a little smoky on this? Just a
definitely
really soft waft of smoke.
Slightest hint, isn't it? Yeah.
It's got a bit of savouriness too, which I thought was throwing me. Maybe it's just that sort of thought association. But I'm glad you said it because I am. But it was sort of almost like a burnt savoury meat note. But I think there is a bit of smoke.
You know what? Here's a prediction for you guys. With that sort of asset swap of Pernod picking up the Whiskey Exchange and Sukinda picking up Tormore, I reckon we're going to have. It's going to be a matter of time now, probably 6 months to 3 years from now. There's going to be a whole new, very fancy, nicely packaged core range that coming out of this distillery, and that's when people will say, "Oh, I wish I could find some independent bottlings of this distillery." I've already said Tormore. Damn it, whatever. You know what I mean? But then people are going to be saying, "Oh, I wish I could find really good cask strength offerings of this distillery because I can only find the 43% or something version of the Tormore 8-year-old and Tormore 10-year-old, and maybe there's an 11-year-old at duty free and a 12-year-old exclusive to Taiwan kind of vibe." But it's like we'll see. I think casks like this will be ones that we go, "Oh, how good was that?" Because it is a fascinating malt. It's like, as Andrew said, there's a hint of smoke, cured meats. It's a very firm spirit, as it always is out of this distillery, and it holds up well at different ages. And going to Andrew's point about purifiers, maybe this has something to do with it. But I find this is one of those distilleries that works really well young, teenage, old, and everything in between. It's the versatility of that spirit. Just as with Glen Grant, between 5 and 50-year-old Glen Grant is all pretty fantastic gear, whereas some distilleries find that sweet spot that work really well at 14 or 18 all the time, but their older stuff's a bit over the hill and the younger stuff's not much good.
And let's not ignore. I mean, this is a heavy hitter alcohol-wise too. 63%. That's up there for 11 years old.
Yeah, it's absolutely up there.
Which I think is helping it, or not necessarily helping it, but making it very unique. Because generally, I've seen independent bottlers get older stocks, like you were saying, Matt. I think they sort of 25 and up is usually what, other than from us, is usually what I see the sort of age statement on IBs. But I think maybe the higher alcohol carries it. There's
a cask the Society had of this way back in about, I'm going to guess 2007, there or thereabouts. And I'm going to guess again, I think it was 105.12. And it was quite aged. It was well into the 20s. And that was one of those casks that the whole membership who tasted it talked about. I think we had the privilege back then of being able to showcase it in the tastings were held in pretty much all the capital cities. So anyone who came to their event in their local city got to try this one. We had a big allocation of it. And despite the fact it was quite old and therefore had a very high price tag, it sold out so quickly at every event. It was just such a banger. I've never forgotten that.
That's awesome too, because I would have said, without that anecdote, I would have said it's a bit of a sleeper code. Maybe these days, especially, it's not one that you'd think would be on most people's top 5 to 10 memorable code numbers. Maybe that's just we've seen it more recently. But
have a look. We're only up to 37. We've only done it 37 times, and way back in
40 years
in 2007, we're only up to 12. So yeah, there's not been too many of them.
Yeah. Lucky to have a couple through at the moment, like this one, and there's one coming up in February outturn, which will be all revealed on Friday this week. So, but it's it's. I think we're lucky to see a few of these, and to your point, something a bit younger, and rather than these very old casks that have been probably passed around a few times. There came a question through for Andrew. Why the purifiers? So why use purifiers? It's up on the screen now.
Well, as the name suggests, you're purifying the spirit. It's what a distillery does when it wants to make sure that its spirit is a lighter style. Any of the heavier elements that have made their way up through the line arm are captured, and they'll basically condense and fall back into the still before they can make the extra lunge forward into the condenser. So it's basically a way of removing some of the heavier vapors that have made their way up, and it gives you therefore a lighter spirit.
There we go. Darren Howie asks, he says, getting some hoppiness like from an empty beer glass. That's that could be. It's not hop spirit, I know that much, but it's kind of, I know what you mean, like that sort of like really sort of like dry hopped beer sort of vibe. That's probably the barley note showing through a bit, which might be tricking it a bit, but I like that. I like that in a whiskey. And Muzzman says, I remember that Tullamore aged bottling. It carried its age well.
Muzz, if you can remember the code or you've got it handy and look it up, I'd be grateful. If it's worth remembering. It was such a doozy.
Rob Akers asks a very good question, actually. If you want pure spirit, like you've just been talking about with the purifier, why not just use a column still then?
Well, there's a difference between pure spirit and purer spirit. And I mean, pure, I suppose, implies that you're like say a third distillation. That is refinement. That's getting the spirit pure and pure until you just eventually end up with ethanol. But I guess maybe I used the wrong words, but it's certainly to get a lighter spirit where the heavier ethanols and elements don't capture through into the end result that you collect in your spirit tank.
I think you're right, AD. It's entirely different because on the second distillation, you've got different weighted vapors carrying different flavor compounds. If you're just taking some of them out, it's almost like creating a recipe. You're removing certain flavors or the possibility of certain flavors from the end result of that. But if you then do a triple distillation or a column that's just constantly filtering, you're not being as selective, I guess. You're eliminating all of it as it goes up and up and up, or as it gets distilled another time, or whatever you're doing to that further purification. So I think purifiers would be my preference in terms of refining a spirit rather than just distilling it down and down and down.
And Darren asks, is the purifier diverting spirit from the condenser back into the still top?
Well, yeah, and any of the heavier vapors that make it to the purifier, they condense, they drop back down, and they're fed back into the still to be redistilled. It's another form of reflux. Some other distilleries and stills achieve the same thing by creating the boil ball at the base of the neck. Similar thing. I mean, Ardbeg have got a similar device. If you look at the still at Ardbeg, there's a top level thing that they call a purifier. It's not one of these pot ones like we see here, but it's not that uncommon. Thank you, Dov. It was indeed 0.12, and it was a 30-year-old.
Yep, that's the one.
Don't know where you pulled that bit of information out, but well Googled. Well done.
I assume you mean 105, Dov. Otherwise, that would be a pretty rare cask.
Yeah, not 103. No. Shall we? Well, move on. We'll move on to 5.98, a passionate Pavlova for our third dram of the night. Now, let's bring up. Here we go. There's our little. I
think I saw Whiskey and Almond tuning in. I think this was talking to the bar a couple of nights ago. I think this was one of their picks.
Not only that, I'll go one further, Alex. The obligatory photo of the stills, but There he is. There's Jacob,
There you go.
outgoing superstar from Western Helmet, holding his favorite cask from January outturn, 5.98, a passionate Pavlova. Literally the dram we're about to pour into our glass now, or if you haven't already, you should do so. It's a juicy oak and vanilla Distillery 5, a passionate Pavlova. There is a cool little backstory with the Society and Distillery 5, in that it was Pip Hills who got Distilleries 1, 2, 3, and 4 off the ranks in 83, and then it was his 2IC, or for lack of a better phrase, his business associate Andano, who got Distillery 5 on board, and he was Pip was very against it at the time, apparently, because he said that all Distillery 5 to him tastes like soap, was his wording. So he never wanted this Lowland Distillery bottled, but I'm on Anne's side for this, because these first fill 18-year-olds we've seen a couple of now, and this one's the most recent, are just banging stuff, like truly like vanilla cheesecake, like fresh ice cream, Pavlova notes. And that's why this Pavlova note one works really well, because that's our image board. It's our passion over for 5.98.
Well, I think so. And just further to your point, I think Dr. Akers is on the money there. Perhaps you could bring up his comment, but to that very point, Rob's got it right.
Trust. There you go.
The Society 5s are just so different to the OBs.
I'll go so far to say, and I hope I love everyone that we love everyone at Beam Suntory, blah blah blah. But there's one or two of those OBs that I find personally like quite not drinkable, and you know they make for good cocktails. They make for great mixing. They are built to a purpose, and that's great. But it's in terms of other than that, it's not much of a sipping whiskey. But that's okay. Every whiskey has its place in the market, and some of them are built for shaking into cocktails or highballs. How rich is the nose on that? How is that? Literally like one of those, those little tins of passion fruit pulp that you can get, that you put, like, because you're being lazy, you don't want to scoop out all the passion fruits for your Pavlova, so you get the tinned one that's got that slightly SPC note to the passion fruit. That for me is
bang on for flavor profile. Like, apropos my earlier comment on sometimes maybe water will get into the right category, but this is juicy oak and vanilla right from first pour.
Definitely.
It's juicy, it's oaky, so much vanilla bean ice cream and Pavlova in a glass.
Matt, I just want to pick up on something you said earlier about this distillery and maybe the reputation it has amongst some. It's that classic thing that I think we in the society and members of the society, and I suppose anyone who delves into the world of independent bottlings can appreciate. You never, ever want to buy into the stereotype. You'd never want to subscribe too heavily to the popular opinion about what a distillery is or isn't, because the single cask will always give you the exception to the rule. And I concur a little bit with your sentiments there about some of the broader official range of this distillery. We, when the Society, the Australian branch, has done our ultimate tours to Scotland, we've done 4 of them now, and we finish up at Auchentoshan, which by coincidence is this distillery. Would you believe it? Incredible. Wow. Wow. But this is the last distillery we visit on our 10-day tour before driving back into Edinburgh and finishing up at Queen Street. But in 2009, on the tour we did that year, we went through the distillery. We had an amazing tasting at the end, and they took us into the dram room. And the guy who took us around that year was, from memory, Ian Henderson, I think, who went on to be their master blender for a patch. And he took us into his blending lab and pulled out a 1966 from this distillery. And both of you, I'm sure, in the back of your head have your own sort of top 10 drams or top 5, those lists of drams that you will never, ever forget because they were just so good and head and shoulders above every other of the thousands of whiskies that have passed your lips. And I put that 1966 from this distillery in my top 10. It was just standout, blow you away sort of stuff. And just showcase that this distillery makes good spirit, and when they stick it into a good cask and do everything else right, it can shine as bright and as beautiful as the rest of them.
Oh, Totally agree. Totally agree. In fact, I would still actually, I will just make note of one bottling that I remember from a few years ago now, probably about 8-9 years ago. There was a release of theirs called just Valinch, and it was a cask strength, no age statement, Auchentoshan, and it was sublime. I just remember it being like, it was like a lemon drizzle cake. And as it's being like, that's how do you get those flavors in that whiskey? And I loved it, not because it's cask strength. I mean, I do love cask strength whiskey, but it's sort of like it's just the flavors in that whiskey. I tried to savor that bottle for a year, I think, or more, just on the shelf of just a tiny bit here and there sometimes because of whiskeys. Yeah, you are right though. If they get it right, they get it really right. And I've had some cracking whiskeys out of this distillery as well. Not a 66, but certainly some other amazing drops out of them in the past. But yeah.
I'm not a cask strength. I haven't yet, but I was just going to say very quickly. I think I'm not a cask strength sort of snob about it. Obviously, I like it, but Matt, your comment on OB at cask strength being sort of one of your preferred ones. I think that is my unifying common denominator with Distillery 5/OB. I think it works for me at cask strength. It doesn't really work when diluted. So AD, I'm very keen I'll try it, but keen to see what you think with the water, because that brings it down. Even it keeps it pretty strong. We'll bring it down a bit more.
Well, I mean, it's hard
water straight away.
18 years.
Water straight away opens up the nose. Brings out confectionery, some jelly jube sort of notes. And on the palate,
I saw a very apt observation from, I think it was Dov earlier, who said that tonight we're all on. It's all something. They're all, in some guys, all first fills, which is true. That was actually entirely by accident, to be honest. We don't pick out whiskeys based on the cask types too much. We pick them out based on flavor profile and diversity and region a little bit more. But picking them out on, it doesn't matter whether something's this age or that age. It more like, well, if for these virtuals we can clock in, 5 different flavor profiles. That's always more exciting. Muzz, there you go. Does water bring more of the fruit out? This distillery brings out fruits with water for me. Yeah. It's
it's very zingy fruit. So it certainly brings out some citrus.
It's an interesting point generally too, Muzz, because I think it can go either way depending on the spirit for sure, because I've definitely had it where water will just kill all the fruitiness, kill all the freshness off the palate and the nose. But then other times it'll kind of mute down some of those other flavors or the heavier notes that are hiding the fruit. And so I think it's always a risk, but I agree with this one. It definitely brings out the fruit.
Fantastic stuff. Yes, that was my comment. Yes, it was. And by the way, big shout out to Mal. Normal Man, there you are. Hi, friends. Hi, Mal. Hope you're well. Hope you've properly settled now into your new place. So Melbourne loses a member to Adelaide. That's okay.
That's all right. Adelaide gave us Dr. Akers back to Melbourne, so fair swap.
There you go. That's true. It's just musical chairs sometimes, isn't it? Cool. Well, I think that's where we're at with 598. I'm really liking that. I can see why it was Whiskey and Elm. It's one of Whiskey and Elm's top picks for January. And it's a great summary cask. That's the whole idea behind these summer sippers. If you've just joined us, of course, like Mal, maybe a few others, we are tasting through the summer sippers. It's our January virtual. Oh, I even had a ticker for tonight. Ready? There we go. So, but yeah, we're doing the January summer sippers tonight, and that's a chance for us to taste through some of these more summery January, February sort of selections. Gives you a chance to taste some whiskeys and go, I really want a bottle of that, which is really good because all of these are available now. Some virtuals we've done, it's been like, hey, this is out next week or this is out next month. This is a preview of what's to come. These are all available now, including this next one, which is just gone up for tonight. A very small allocation of which you'll see in the caption here coming up is 85.68. Limited stock available now, it says. There we go.
Right, before we move on, my conclusion, local panel notes. I like water on the nose, but don't like water on the palate for that number 5. That's my conclusion. I'd leave it as is for drinking, but put some water in for nosing.
Fair call, fair call. Actually, it's a great point. You talk about summer sippers, and sorry, Matt, I know you brought up the next whiskey, but if you had to pigeonhole and rely on a stereotype for a summer dram, surely a lowland whiskey in a bourbon cask is going to tick that box.
Yeah, that's definitely going to tick that box.
It's funny when you talk about lowland whiskies. I mean, certainly in the period when I got seriously into whiskey, there were only 3 of them. I've lost count of how many lowland distilleries there are officially now. We must be getting close to 15, aren't we? There's all the new ones have opened up.
Yeah, I was about to say I think it's around a dozen, but yeah, you're probably right. It's probably 15 now. I'm probably a little bit behind as well. Of course, there's we see currently 4 or 5 of them regularly available at the moment, but I think we're going to see a lot more.
Well, we've got a gin from one of the lowland distilleries in Edinburgh coming through on our next shipment, so look out for that later in the year. Yeah,
lowland gin. See, that's also exciting.
Yeah,
some people are already tucking into the 85, which is great to see. So we're on to the 85 here, the GTR, ginger, tobacco, and rum. And I know that Jenna and and Scott from the US team sometimes watch these videos. So I want to apologize to begin with that you guys aren't getting this, because let's be honest, you can't really get away with a whiskey called that in the US. But this is ginger, tobacco, and rum. I've just stuck my nose in this glass, and it might be a bit of power suggestion here, but I'm literally getting ginger, tobacco, and rum on the nose, which is just fantastic.
Really? Wow.
a very literal tasting note straight away. And we'll just bring up.
One of my favorite things, Matt, it's funny you say that, because power suggestion or otherwise, but so many times when a bottling name has a product in it that might have been used, so this could have been a rum cask with a name like that, it's often not. Words like words that have port in the bottle title often aren't port cask. Rum, anything that sort of has an association often is just the result of either the spirit or in this case, obviously a different cask type. So sometimes exceptions. I think every time we've used the word hop, it's been an IPA cask. But other than that, I think it's generally different.
Yeah. We had a couple of IPA casks last year.
I'd go with ginger. I think the ginger screaming out of the glass on there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh. But you get that rummy note. Like, do you get that sort of and I don't mean agricole, I mean like sugar rum. Like proper
rum is the only note on that front I'm not getting at the moment.
Yeah, I was about to say, if I use some imagination, I could get to a rum. But
I'm talking like a really processed one, like a Zacapa or something, or a Diplomatico, not like an agricole. Anyway, you guys aren't rum drinkers anyway, and I know Morsey especially isn't a rum drinker.
Yeah, I have to own that, AD. I'm definitely not a rum drinker.
I did that purely to get 80s back up on that one. That was great. That was worth of the response alone. That was good. Thank you.
And I was just sitting here going, "Yep, fair for me. No worries."
I've polished off 2 bottles of rum in the last 2 nights, and that's no lie. To be fair, one of them was a miniature, but I still polished it off.
If you open and kill off a 30 ml miniature, it's still killing a bottle. So yep, good.
Yeah.
I reckon that post by Rob there is spot on. Like, generally ginger or high levels of spice notes often just put it in the spicy category, but this one is I know why they put it there, but yeah, you usually see it in spicy and dry.
I think this one does justify deep, rich, and dried fruits. It's a bit of an unusual deep, rich, and dried fruits. It's not your usual sort of, people often associate that flavor profile, I think, unfairly with just being straight up big cherried whiskey. And we've literally seen deep, rich, and dried fruits used on refill bourbon barrels. We've seen it used on port casks. We've seen it used on all sorts of different things. And it's to do with the flavor profile, nothing to do with the cask.
I think this has always been the big challenge for me with the society, and it's been a mystery since 2002. But the cask is a hogshead, and 95% of hogsheads were once bourbon barrels that had extra staves added to increase them to a hogshead. But there are still plenty of hogsheads around that spent time in the sherry industry. So when you see a first fill number 3 char hogshead, was it a hoggy that, you know, had sherry in it at some point in life? I know it says first fill number 3 here, but that's first fill Scotch. That still doesn't tell you necessarily what the cask was seasoned with prior to that.
No. Yeah, so it's only 1 year in a first fill char hogshead, level 3 char hogshead. It's 12 years in an ex-bourbon hogshead, yeah.
Having said that, now that I read the actual full tasting notes, it does actually mention ex-bourbon hogshead. So there you go. It was one of those ones, but just to your point, Matt, yeah, absolutely. It would be wrong to look at this flavour profile and just instantly assume it must come from a sherry cask.
In which case, yeah, it's nothing to do with sherry in this one. It's a very attractively priced 13-year-old whiskey. And thanks to your efforts, Andrew, among others, look at that. We absolutely smashed the allocation on this as well. 165 bottles was yielded from that cask in total for the whole world. And Little Old Australia branch got 54 of them.
Speaking of the whole world, welcome, Bob.
Bob Benting's in here. Hey, Bob, good to see you. But not during the tasting here for breakfast, but enjoying the show. Good to see you, Bob. It's been too long. the tallest man alive, I think. You are an absolute beast. Love it.
Back to the thought of the first one quickly, gents. I reckon if the fruit bowl of the first one was all tropical fruits, this is just one big bowl of all the dried fruits I can think of. Dates and raisins and pretty much everything all in one.
I'm going to throw one out that you don't reach for too often. I'm going to add pomegranate to the mix.
Do you get a bit of do you get a bit of that marmalade sort of like? That's good. Navel orange.
Said I'm getting that slightly tart, like a pomegranate molasses kind of.
Exactly, the pomegranate molasses, and it's not a huge leap from there to the quince paste, which comes back to the citrus you were just mentioning, Matt, with marmalade.
Yep.
Navel orange skin at the top of the glass. I like that.
Shout out to Tony Chapman if he's watching. He was always a big one for finding quince paste on a whiskey. With the same frequency that Anthony Cowie would find Bonjela.
Bonjela.
That's an in-joke that only about 3 people as part of this live stream are going to appreciate. But anyway.
I'm not inclined to add water to that one.
Clementine. Yeah, that's a good one, Dov. I agree with that. And you know what, Matt, now that this has actually had a bit of time in the glass and some of the volatiles have blown off, I will now concede that, yeah, there is a rum note going on there.
See, I'd say it's even more of a rum note than some of the ex-rum casks we've seen through. There's not even a rum cask inside.
Andrew agrees with you. Then we've got to up the game. No, it's rubbing as an actual rum.
Yeah, I get heaps rum on that. I love it. I love it.
I really, really like that, though. I mean, I'm not actually getting a heap of the rum still, but that is it's brilliant for all the notes I am getting.
But I agree with Matt. It's in the style of that Diplomatico or Ron Zacapa range.
With the big sneaky 23 on the front of the bottle that doesn't allude to the age at all.
No, that's right.
Get away with whatever you like in the rum world sometimes. Don't tell Richard
It's a bit like when you have a bottling of Timor and someone says, wow, this whiskey's 105 years old.
In which case, I just love bottles of 1-year-old Glenfarclas. Just love them.
Yes.
Well, I was not expecting this flavour profile from this distillery either. That was a nice surprise to see it in that profile and with all those notes, because I've generally had this, and it's kind of the nice sweet spot of a fresh refill bourbon kind of expression, but that is very good in that form.
Mate, I'm so glad you picked up on that. That is a great observation, and it's worth. Oh God, sorry to bring up ancient history, but 20 years ago, this distillery was renowned as a big sherry bomb. When you wanted a big sherry hitter, and the very few, it was a much smaller condensed range that distilleries had out at the time. But this distillery was just renowned for churning out some of the finer sherry drams. And you know, again, just speaking to the flavor profile, as you say, even though that's not what this is.
But those notes would have been there, yeah. If the spirit quality stayed the same, or the spirit character stayed similar, I can see why they would have shone in that format. Yeah,
it's that classic thing about when you talk about you know, that momentous decision that the team at Diageo or UDV at the time came up with the classic malts and deciding, well, which distillery would they use for Speyside? And you know, you hear about it in ancient history now when you read about the traps, you know, the minutes of the meetings. But you know, Mortlock and this distillery were amongst the contenders, and I'm still not quite sure how Cragganmore ended up with that gig. But anyway, this would have been equally good.
Well, now you say that, Eddie, that's exactly probably where it started in having this for the first time. Probably would have been like a flora and fauna OB. In terms of OBs, as opposed to IBs, which is very just bourbon cask, fresh Speyside.
It's a very heavy. It's a distillate that runs quite heavy as well. Like it's always put this 85s in the same category as like Glenkinchie or Mortlach or something. It's you know, it's got that. It's a very heavy.
You put up the picture just a moment ago. It's got worm tubs. It's one of the classic distilleries still with worm tub condensers.
They are. Glorious. Yeah. And
I can't remember the stat now. A few years ago, there were 13 distilleries that still had worm tubs, and 12 of them were either Diageo or ex-Diageo, owned by Diageo at the time.
I think it's closer to like 16 or 17 now as well. I think that number's gone up because there's a bunch of the newer distilleries are running them.
I know Ballandalloch threw them in.
Yeah, there's I think that's one of about 3 or 4 of the new era distilleries that have got them in there now.
Yeah,
kind of cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes of Ballandalloch in years to come. Cool. Well, that's GTR. Like I said, got a very limited stock available online now on the shop page as I speak. So. If you want to grab a bottle of that, now's your chance, because this is technically a preview, as in like this is an upcoming cask, but we've made a small allocation available for the virtual. And Rob Akers says, "I love a worm tub." Yes, of course. And Murray, I had the comment up before. I got an idea. I could only hear Bonjela said in a Scottish accent, thanks to Cowie. And Dov obviously pre-poured his a bit earlier. Because after 50 minutes, it gave him rum note. So he's obviously had that glass poured right from the beginning. Probably a good idea. I made the mistake of pouring as I go tonight, but that's okay. You can pour them at the beginning. You can pour them as you go. And that leads us into whiskey number 5. So this is one of those ones that got it actually a name. It got a name change. So, 4.314, sitting in the sauna. Sushi in the sauna, it starts by saying. Potpourri on fire and coconut bacon. So this is one of those fours that we've been getting through that is not strictly a single cask. It even says on the label very clearly, a single malt originally from bourbon hogsheads, plural, married in a first fill bourbon barrel. So initial cask, ex-bourbon hogsheads, and the final cask was an extra maturation in another first fill ex-bourbon barrel, and then bottled at 61 points.
I'm particularly enamored with this parcel of these casks that the Society got, Matt, and I hope you like them too, because I've put 3 casks on our next boat.
Good.
More of them.
Yeah, no, they're so well integrated, and when you break it down, if like you might hear the odd complaint now and then of someone saying, "Oh, it's not cask, it's not single cask." It's like, yeah, have a taste of it and tell me what you think of it, because it's like they are so well integrated. They come together so nicely, and I think Ewan and the Spirits team, with the work they've done on putting these barrels together and putting out the end result of these, have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Look at the 13-year-old cask strength Orkney single malt. It's ridiculous. Orkney. There we go. That narrows it down, doesn't it? It doesn't rhyme with Scarpa. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I have no idea where you were going to take that. I was trying to think of one myself. I wonder what he's going to say.
I was trying to think of a word that rhymed with Scarpa.
Wasn't there a character in that Monkey Magic show called Trippy Carter was the place they were traveling to or something? Trippy Carter that rhymes with
Trippy Carter, Scarpa. Yeah. Anyway, it's the other one.
Maybe you meant Scarpa spelled differently. The actual to Scarpa.
Oh yes, indeed.
You know.
I was just going to make a Viking reference, but anyway.
Dov says he loves it, and he broke his resolution. He's purchased it, and he would wait a while until his next purchase. It's okay. It's January, Dov. You may as well get a summer sipper whilst you're here. And Rob Baker says it's coconut bacon with shredded coconut stuck to it. Is this done pre or post cooking? Ooh. Was it coconut bacon?
Rob's
or
training for MasterChef. He wants to know the hack. How you get coconut bacon.
Tripitaka, a few people saying. Murray and Dov both saying Tripitaka.
That was compulsory viewing for me when I was a kid at school. You'd come home from school and turn on Monkey Magic. Followed by the goodies.
I was like, yeah.
MasterChef.
It's like, wait, hold on. How long has that show been going?
A long time, actually.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, can you just bring up my screen full size for a second?
Yeah, sure. Let me do that. And then that.
I'm going to get out of the way. Oh, it's gone blurry. You can't see, but that guy in the background is our good friend, the Whiskey Ledger.
Jonathan.
Jonathan. That's photos from the 2017 Society Tour to Scotland.
Monkey Magic, then the goodies, or Kenny Everett. There we go, Darren.
Yeah, Darren. Yes, exactly.
Oh dear.
Did I whistle for my cloud? Oh dear.
These references going over my head at this point. We're going into Monkey Magic references now.
Yeah, I've been lost for 5 minutes. I was lost at the start of the joke, to be honest.
Your idea.
Actually, Darren, you might remember there was Monkey Magic, then the goodies, and then at one point on the Tuesday night, you then watched the D-Generation and then the Young Ones. That was a good Tuesday night viewing.
Those two I've got. That's good. I'm back up. Actually, I do love the goodies, but never watched on TV. But I'm catching back up with Young Ones. Excellent.
Awesome.
You and the team are doing extra maturation in the best possible way, looking for ways to improve on already good spirit. That is true, Murray. It's fantastically well integrated spirit. And to Andrew's point, some of these falls we've been getting through are arguably better than some of these single casks of falls we've seen. They are just a so well integrated spirit, and you can't ask for anything more than that.
The only thing I disagree with, I'm not sure I agree with the panel's decision to put this in peated. I'd have said this was lightly peated myself.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd say this is lightly peated. Yep. I think maybe it's the proof through them a bit or something. I don't know. I'm also not getting the whole sort of they write in here about lime/mint flavored water with the hot coals thing. I haven't really got that, but I get the whole sort of smoke and floral and sweet aromas and the bacon notes, but I don't really get the whole sort of lime and mint thing.
No, I didn't get the lime and mint, but that sort of that slight maybe dank is the word, but not in a bad way, was there on first open of my sample, but then it's wafted off. It's definitely fresher and fruitier now.
Mm.
Or more floral, I should say, yeah, than fruity.
Dov, to answer your question, the fruitcake was absolutely spectacular, and it disappeared in all of about 7 minutes. We had 9 people around the table, and it was gone. It was so bloody good. And forgive me for not reaching back to you and thanking you for that and letting you know. But it was the highlight of the dining table. I'll tell you, it was extraordinary. Well done, sir. Very, very fantastic cake.
All righty. Well, that leads us into sort of the finalization of tonight's formalities. We'll have to close it off shortly. But I really appreciate you all coming along for this ride of Summer Sippers. Andrew, Alex, thank you so much for tasting through these with us and for some light entertainment as we tasted through the Summer Sippers, our first virtual back. We're looking forward to, like I said, our big Mavericks year, a huge year ahead with the SNWS, and I'm so excited to do it with both to celebrate that year with you guys and especially with all the members around the country, because there's going to be some big things on this year. Speaking of this year, a quick sort of wrap, if you like. There's February Outturn. It'll be in your inbox. Sorry. It'll be in your inbox very shortly. Cheers, team. Thank you, Darren. There's the cover, just to give a little bit of a teaser, but the full extent of which you'll see in your box on Friday. There is our Malt of the Month as a teaser, which you probably saw on our socials. If you didn't, you've seen it now. There's Full Bloom. Very cool project. 18-year-old single malt whiskey with a bit of an Australian influence to it, which you'll be able to read about in Outturn. And there it is in all. And it's a very exciting project from you and the team to finish off to start off for the year here. And that was, of course, our Summer Sippers. Thank you so much for coming along. Of course, I'm going to make one last little announcement. Champs is back this year, but also a few events coming up. Tomorrow night's Robbie Burns whiskey is completely sold out. I'm sorry, there's a wait list, but that's the way it goes. Chairman's Grand Tour of Space. Andrew's coming to Melbourne to host the Grand Tour. There's a very small handful of tickets left for that, so don't miss out on that one. We also have Pizza is coming to Perth, so if there's a very small handful of tickets left for that. Every ticket includes a full pizza, which is exciting. And Drop the Sherry Bomb, which Xander over in Perth is also hosting later in March, but book in early for that one because it's going to be a big sherried night of all types of sherry and sherried whiskey. Oh,
save me a seat. I'm flying over for that.
Yeah, for sure. And then Champs is back for 23, of course. Save the date, Saturday, 24th of June. Gents, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Really appreciate everyone for being a part of these virtuals. And, of course, we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, one all. Cheerio.